My friends, at the beginning of our heart-rendering drama, we see a moderate drinker. Later, we watch his downfall, which results in his embarrassment and the embarrassment of his family. Ultimately, we observe his despair and his attempt to commit suicide. He's going to kill himself. Never was there such a thrilling and affecting performance. After the performance, those who wish to sign the pledge not to drink hereafter can do so at the box office. Does the dark, sinister forces receive their just reward, or is virtue crowned in everlasting glory? Wait and see. You are invited to applaud the noble characters in their portrayal, and at the same time to hiss. Oh, that was me. I thought I was getting there was given. You can hiss the villain who plots the ruin of our heroine, as well as the worthy characters who struggle for justice. I thank you. No, not me. The man with the big mustache. That's the... Excuse me.
Very dear to me, for it is here that your father sat when he passed away. Ah, he was a good provider. He left us this lovely home with its drooping arbors of grapes, its heavily laden fruit trees, its garden of fragrant flowers, a cow,
and a mortgage.
Ah, yes.
'Tis true that this cottage is very dear to us, but Father owed Mr. Middleton quite a mortgage on this house. And while we haven't been bothered, 'tis the general belief now that Mr. Middleton is dead, his son will foreclose.
If he wants the money, there is nothing we can do about it. But I shudder to think that you, my beloved child, will be exposed to the thousands of temptations faced by a penniless orphan. Hark! Who knocks? Come in!
Good morning, Mrs. Wilson.
Good morning, sir. Mary, bring Mr. Cribbs the comfy chair.
Thank you, my dear young lady. So we meet once again. A sad misfortune has befallen all of us in the passing of Mr. Middleton.
Many will have reason to think so, I fear.
Yes, you're right. Mr. Middleton was a fine man. He was my best friend. He always took my advice. I was his lawyer.
Was he not very rich?
When times were good, but bad speculations, investments, and false friends took their toll, alas.
Mr. Middleton was very kind to us, and in our own misfortune did not press his claims. As his lawyer, we look to you. I understand you are a man who
has a sympathetic heart for the unfortunate. That is the reputation that I have. But have you any thoughts Any prospects of paying the mortgage?
Then it is too true. We will have to leave our lovely cottage and garden.
Well, what can I do? I pleaded with young Mr. Middleton, but he wouldn't listen. He said he needed the money. He is a young man, somewhat given to excesses, I fear. Oh, but pardon me, my dear Miss Mary. I would not call up a blush upon the cheek of modesty by mentioning the name of Edward Middleton.
I remember him as a lad. He was a bright blue-eyed boy with flaxen hair, tall for his age.
Well, madam, business is business. I'm a plain man, Mrs. Wilson. Some people say that I'm too blunt, but
You mean we will have to leave this cottage, sir?
Not immediately, my dear young lady, but it would be well to be prepared.
You impose a severe task on us, my good sir.
Bear up, madam. Bear up. If I may suggest, there are ways in which Mary may earn her living in New York City. A fine, upstanding woman like your daughter may always find a profitable occupation. Think it over. I reiterate, think it over.
Comfort, my daughter, comfort. Mr. Cribbs may be our friend in this hour of misfortune.
He appears to be a man of feeling.
But before depending on him, we will make one last appeal to this young man, Mr. Edward Middleton. You have the money in your purse?
Yes, I have, Mother. $30. The sum we saved to buy coal for this winter.
This will pay part of the mortgage. When Mr. Edward Middleton sees we are trying to pay the debt, he may relent. You turn pale, Mary. What ails you?
Dear Mother, it is nothing. I'll be all right. It's just that I fear to meet this young man. Mr. Cripps has told us how wicked he is. I fear the worst.
Have courage. Do not enter his house when you tell him his sad story and give him the money. Still, no matter how wild a youth may be, no gentleman ever insulted a friendless and unprotected girl. But stay in the vestibule.
Well, thank heavens, that interview of mock sympathy and charity with the Wilsons is over. Oh, how I hated old Middleton. And oh, how I hate young Edward Middleton. And if he has any children, oh, how I'll hate them too. I flatter myself I did some pretty good acting for the old widow Wilson. How do you do? But the widow and her daughter must leave the cottage. That will suit my purpose best. To get them out, sell it, and pocket the profit. The daughter is quite a pretty wench. Ah, here she comes now. I'll hide behind yon tree, where I can watch her.
I shall soon reach Mr. Edward Middleton's mansion on yon hill. In a few moments, I shall face this dissipated young collegian. Such a man can have no pity on a poor, defenseless girl like me. Hark! A man approaches. I wonder if it is Mr. Edward Middleton. How shall I ever have the courage to speak to him? I had better wait till he reaches his house.
She's gone.
This poor bird must have fallen from its mother's nest. I shall place it here where its mother may find it.
Good morning, you son of my old friend. I've been looking for you.
Good morning, Mr. Cribbs. Any friend of my father's is a friend of mine.
Nobly said. I see your father before me as I look at you. He will be easier prey than his father was.
You said you wanted to see me about something.
Yes. I want to see you about the cottage that Mrs. Wilson and one daughter are occupying. The mortgage remains unpaid, and I have an opportunity of disposing of it.
When last we talked of the cottage, Mr. Cribbs, I did not know it was occupied by a poor widow and her lovely daughter.
Age and tears wait for no one.
They have lived there for many years, and my father regarded them highly.
There are places they can go. There is the poorhouse for people like that.
Enough, Mr. Cribbs. I would not think of depriving them of their home. A home that is as dear to them as the apple of their eye. I would not think to send them away from the flowers they have reared.
But what of the fences that are broken? What of the garden gate that's off its hinges? What of the limbs of the old birch tree broken down for firewood? And the back windows that are broken and stuffed with a black hat?
Cease, Mr. Cribbs. All this has been explained to me. My very good friend William Dalton has told me the entire story. The trees were broken by idle schoolboys. As for the hat in the window, it was the hat of Mr. Wilson, deceased. It was the hat of a man. Can as much be said of yours, Mr. Cribbs?
You are being very unreasonable, sir. Good day. Good day.
I'm sorry I offended him. After all, he was a friend of my father's. My poor father regarded him highly. He always took his advice, but it was invariably unfortunate when he did so.
I beg your pardon. I understand you better now. You are right. The daughter is a fine girl. Sparkling eyes, dimples, ruby lips. I was young myself once. Have you seen her?
Never. Explain yourself, Mr. Cribbs.
Mother and daughter grateful, free access to the domicile at all times. Love in the cottage, eh?
Cribbs, do you realize this girl has no father nor brother to protect her?
Just a wildflower. Yes, that's it. A wild flower growing in an open meadow. A garden without a fence. All you have to do is to step right in.
I knew an old man once, and had that old man heard you utter such foul sentences to his son, and had he heard you tell me to enter like a wolf this fold of innocence and tear from her mother's arms the hope of her old age, he would have seized you by the throat and dashed you prostrate to the ground, as too foul a carcass to ever walk erect and mock the name of man. That man, sir, was my father.
But Mr. Middleton, sir.
Leave me. Begone.
But, sir.
Your hot, lascivious breath is not fit to mingle with the sweet odor of these fragrant flowers. Ah, I see you like butter. Your raven voice does not harmonize with the warblings of the birds, which sing with praise to that power that looks in horror on your brutal mind.
Mr. Edward Middleton, sir.
But, Mr. Middleton, you're allowing temptation to turn you from your duty to your father. After all, business is business. Young lady, you will rue the day that you ever crossed the path of Silas Cribbs.
So this is the farmer's daughter.
The widow's daughter, sir. And here is part of the mortgage money we owe you.
My child, then you have not overheard my talk with Mr. Cribbs. I told him that you and your mother...
May remain in the cottage? Oh, sir. Is that why we should withhold this money from you? It is now our double pleasure to pay you, for we recognize in you a noble benefactor. Be assured that the remainder will be paid as soon as these hands may earn it.
Nay, nay, dear child. Keep it as a portion of your dowry.
Oh, sir.
I have spoken plainly to Cribbs. Shall I now speak plainly to you?
It is not our fault that the fences are broken. When my poor father lived, it was not so.
When that vile man spoke to me of your charms, I heeded him not. There are plenty of pretty girls about. But I have since discovered what I have heard before. Something that is deeper than beauty itself. The charm that Cribbs is incapable of appreciating. Your charm is of mental excellence, noble sentiment, and purity. These are the beauties that render you conspicuous above all the maidens I have seen. These are the charms that make captives of men. I speak plainly, but I speak honestly. When I speak of your keeping this money as a portion of your dowry, need I say into whose hands I would like to have it fall?
To affect not to understand you, sir, would be an idle return for such kindness as yours.
I sometimes walk in the vicinity of your cottage, and...
Should you pass by and not stop, then...
Then what, dear Mary?
I should think that you had forgotten where we live.
Little did I think that dear cottage contained such a precious jewel.
Here comes William Dalton's half-crazy sister. She knows too much to suit me. Why doesn't she keep out of my way? Her voice haunts me. In her, I see the image of the boy that she was engaged to. Little does she know that it was because of me that he died in a drunken stupor. And that because of that, she became lightheaded.
The old moss-covered wall. The lawyer's a fine man, he is. Aha. He lives in the brick house yonder. But there's the will. Uh-oh. Ah, yes, the will. Uh-oh.
Go home, Hazel, go home.
Edward and Mary will be wed today. Can you tell me why they always weep at weddings? Is it for joy? I used to weep when I was joyful. But my wedding dress is all mildewed. So we had to put the wedding off until another day. But there's the will. Uh-oh. The will. Uh-oh. The will. Uh-oh. The will.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Confusion! Get you gone, or I'll...
Why, you foreman, you would strike my helpless little sister. If I wasn't afeard of losing my temper, I'd break every bone in your black beetle body, or my name's not William Dalton.
You will rue this day, William Dalton. This is a plain case of assault and battery. I'll have you put behind gray stone walls.
You'll put me behind gray stone walls.